Hey, you're out in the garage with TheEZGZ. Hope you're doing well. I've been messing around. I just posted a short. You ever have one of those days that even though you have the best intentions, everything you touch is a struggle? Well, that's what today has been here. And I got a few comments here lately. They wanted to see my control panel that I made for my engine stand. That all came about, let me give you a little backstory here. That all came about because I have this fan shroud and new alternator that came as a kit. I bought it a couple of years ago when I built the 2110 for my buggy, and as you can see, the generator is back on it now. For some reason, that new high dollar Pertronix exhaust does not like 16 volts. I did not know it was putting out 16 volts. It worked for a year and a half. I drove it last summer. This spring when I went to fire it up, it wouldn't work. It kept misfiring, crossfiring, and I narrowed it down to those Pertronix Igniter 3 modules do not like high voltage or low voltage. They cut out. They've got to have clean, good, grounded system with good voltage. Now, I went and bought another alternator. That's this one. And it, right out of the box, did the same thing. I had replaced my alternator, my spark plugs. I went down the whole checklist thinking it was a fuel issue and so on and so forth. So, long story short, this is where we're at, and I'm going to throw this in as part of the review. During that year and a half when I had it, the belt that came with the kit was junk. That didn't last 6 months. It was like a rubber band. It just dry rotted and cracked, and I had to put a better one on. I never liked having chrome pulleys. They slip. You can't do the normal tension, and if you put too much tension on them, it puts stress on your bearings, and those are non-lubricated. They come from the factory with the bearing grease in them, and that's all they get. So that's that issue. It came with a welded fan. You could see a little bit of the welds in here. They just, all the contact points. This listen, unless you're turning 9,000 RPM, I don't think that fan's going to just come apart real easy. There's always exceptions. I took that fan before I assembled it, and I tried to get somebody to balance it to it because there was no balance holes or weights on it, but a lot of welds, and I couldn't find anybody locally that would do that. And so I went ahead and put it together. This doggone kit also was part of the deal. The washer, this is a original factory German spring washer. That garbage that they charge you for in the kit is just junk. It's a one-time use only. Then over the course of that first summer, I don't know what made me look. I noticed I got down here, had my face in here. One of the screws was missing. And I thought, oh, well, I better get another screws. I thought I tightened all of those. Well, I replaced that screw, and all 4 screws took some tightening. And I had to do that twice. That noise you hear in the background is thunder. Yeah, looks like we're going to get some rain here. So, the main problem here at this point was to get my tub buggy running, and I didn't want to have to switch fan shrouds and generators and all of that sort of stuff. So, 2 alternators, they both put out 16 volts, and right now this thing is putting out 15 volts. I've got my number 14 wire. You could probably use heavier, or you could use 2 and twist them together, get them exactly the same length. And I'm using power. This is your charge wire to send power and charge your battery. My battery is grounded to the bell housing. This is just a test setup right here, and I thought I'd do a little bit nicer job. Now, this other terminal for your idiot light, supposedly, that is your exciter terminal. You have to get 12 volts to go to that momentarily. Once it starts up and fires, it will run and make voltage on its own. It has the internal magic to do all that. This internal regulator, and it's an Empi alternator. It's a 50 amp output, the cheapest one that you could get. If you do decide to use this, I'm just telling you from my own personal experience, I bought the kit. I tried using an old German alternator stand. It did not work as well as the new Empi generator stand that also came with that kit. So it all fit and got on the car, but as you guys know, I put a lot of miles on my cars because that's all I drive. So my idiot light that just comes up right here, I was a little disappointed, and when I was building this I didn't want to use these big lights, but this is my oil light and this is the light for my generator, and all I did was buy trailer lights because they were $3.99, and a little test light like this, those things are going for like 15 20 bucks, and I just refused to pay that amount of money. All of this that you're looking at here was made from stuff that I had on hand. I have several trailers, so I had the lights. I did have to drill a hole to come up with some way to mount it, and then I bought one of these terminal strips here. They used to have them at Radio Shack where they had a little plate, so you didn't have to do this Mickey Mouse stuff. You just slid it in there and it makes all of them common, or you can cut off one or two, however you want to do it. There's not a single solitary fuse any place on this motor stand. What is the purpose of a fuse? I want to ask you guys that. What is the purpose of the fuse? Does it protect the device, or is it there to protect the wire? That's what I want to know. Leave your answer in the comment section. Just like your house wires, you have probably a breaker panel someplace in your house for a distribution box that goes throughout your house. Why are those breakers there? Keep your house from burning down in the event of a fire. Well, why would that happen? Because of the wires. Wires are sized according to the load, according to the circuit. You get a whole bunch of magic when you start getting into all this wiring stuff, but it's not as hard if you're thinking about doing this. I look at this and I say, oh, what a mess, but it wasn't that hard to do because I didn't have a plan. I didn't have it on paper. I've been doing this for over 30 some years, and it was part of the way I earned my living, so I went ahead and I just knew that you take one component at a time and do that circuit. Then you go to the next one. All my stuff is temporary. This was an old aluminum parking sign. I had recently done a video and showed how I engine turned a tachometer and put it in my 66. This was a tachometer. This was an odometer tachometer that I had run in a Carmen Ghia, my 64 Carmen Ghia, for years and years. And when I sold the car, before I sold it, I went ahead and took that tachometer out because that tachometer is a match for the tachometer that's in this car. And I figure if that goes bad, I got a spare now. But since I'm not using it, I thought I'd go ahead and use it. Now, here's something for you guys. That tachometer, I was going to put it in my Baja that has a Pertronix pointless ignition module. That tachometer will not work. It said on, not on the housing, but on the band that goes around it, there was a decal and it says standard ignition only. That means it works fine if you got points. And right now, I've got a distributor in here with a condenser, and I extended this over to the coil. I didn't want to make holes here in the shroud. I'm not sure where I wanted to put the coil. For your entertainment, I'm going to put several different carburetor setups. I'm going to try some setter mount setups as well. Now, you'll notice I even have, this is the engine case that caused me to start using electric fuel pumps. This is my 1800. It's a great little engine, but it was from the fuel injected variety, and they didn't come back from the factory with a hole for your fuel pump. Okay, they ran electric fuel pumps. This is the electric fuel pump that I took out of my Sandro last year. Then I made a big stink about how the end of it came out of the pump, and I got a different pump, low pressure, blah blah blah, and I decided it's going to be fine for the engine stand. It's not leaking, and it works just fine. And I have it wired to the battery. I didn't put it on the ignition switch. It has a circuit all its own, and this isn't a very bright switch light. It just barely goes on. So I may take this, I may put this switch in place of this one, just so if I walk away, I'm not leaving my fuel pump on indefinitely. I had a good time building this. This is just a basic starter switch that you can get at Tractor Supply or any automotive store. It's just a high amperage momentary switch, and all you do is just run it down to the two terminals, the hot terminal and the spade on a 12 volt air-cooled starting motor. That gets the job done. Here's also where I picked up my power to go to my ignition switch, and the coil was a spare coil. I needed a coil for something, so since I'm using standard points, I went ahead and used that. And I can hear the rain is starting to come in. I just cut my grass this afternoon. Let her rip, JC. Oh boy. So I even hooked up the light on the tachometer. I had this straight up exhaust on here that was kind of in my way, and I was burning myself, and it came around the side, and I needed to replace the oil pressure switch. That is a whole nother darn story in another video in and of itself. But I've got this thing together, and we'll go ahead and fire it off here. There is a baffle in here. This is an 1 5/8 Sidewinder exhaust. I went ahead with this setup when I built my 2-liter, because I didn't want a pipe sticking up blocking my license plates and having it more difficult to get in there and access things. So I went with the lay down exhaust. Now today, when I went to put it on, it was hitting my oil filter. So I had to run over and get another oil filter, a shorter oil filter. That's a basic oil filter flange. Man, this exhaust is leaking. You can see when I had it on there before, there's no gaskets or seals here. Anyhow, yeah, I had a lot of fun making this. Here's all my tachometer wires. I didn't cut them and do all that stuff to make it all super neat, because this is all probably temporary. This is one of those $50 engine stands. I made the base myself out of scrap pipe where I was working at the time, and that's just a 2-inch pipe coupling. So I can disassemble this, unscrew it, and lean it up against the wall, or put it so it's not in the way. But most of the time I've got an engine or transmission that I'm working on sitting on there, and you can rotate it by loosening this. The front mounting holes, I decided to go ahead and I had some unistrut from another project and these L clamps, and it's like, okay, I just want all this, so I didn't want to weld it, and I didn't want to make it permanent, and I wanted to make it adjustable. So yeah, you can change the angle. I figure you're usually on this side of the engine. Why don't we start by shutting it off? I love that tachometer. And as somebody pointed out, now I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, it is what it is. If you got comments or want to hear more about this engine or the setup that I've got, here's a liquid filled gauge. I had a bad oil sending unit. I didn't want to rob one off another one. Not an oil pressure sending unit, a switch. I do have a gauge in one of them, and I think I have the window down in Valerie out there. So I'm going to make this short, but go ahead and leave a comment below, and we'll answer your questions. And right now this alternator is putting out 15 volts, which is more than I would like it to. I think at 14 is fine. This is a brand new battery. So little tractor battery, 340 cold cranking amps is more than enough. You can crank a 2276 or whatever else you want. This nifty gas tank is a oil sump, and there's a baffle for a dry sump oil system, so you can't see the oil level. So I just cut in a T and use this clear line, so if I want to do a cam break in, I know how much gas I got, so I won't run out, and I'll be able to get the full 20 minutes in. It looks like I need to add some. And then of course there's a little ball valve that I can isolate that with, and the filter that goes ahead of the electric fuel pump. And yeah, that's about it. Pretty simple. Actually, I'm gonna go I'm gonna go out there and get wet, guys. There's no place to set you so you can enjoy this. But I'm just gonna run for it. Woohoo! That's really coming down, and I must have a blockage in my gutter, because this thing ain't draining. It should be coming out of here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subbing. TheEZGZ out. Did you see that lightning? There it is. Catch you on the next one, guys.